So we talked about time travel, and specifically, this was inspired by thoughts about going back in time to kill Hitler. Really placeholder for going back in time to solve humanity's greatest disasters, and if at all it would be possible, and what the implications might be, based on the conventional understanding of time moving in a straight line, because we agree that there's different societies that experience time differently. Them time travel would work in ways we can't fathom. It's about killing Hitler. But my question was, how can you go back in time and just make minor adjustments that stop major disasters from happening?
Yeah.
Like say you're a Time Lord or something of the sort, and you're given the task.
Well, you know what? So first of all, I don't know why I remember this, but I remembered a physics teacher of mine a long time ago. One of the things me and my friends we're a bunch of sci-fi nerds, and so time travel was always a point of discussion. And so I think we got into a heated argument one day in physics, because in physics you had nothing better to do than do physics and rant about sci-fi. And our teacher actually she mentioned that physically at this point in time, in terms of the laws of physics that we know, the only actual achievable method of time travel is time traveling forward.
True.
because we at this point in time there's no, like, so if we want to talk like very basically, like, what are the repercussions if they were to go back and kill Hitler, right?
Yeah.
Physically, in the current state of how physics works, at least at a very, maybe at a high conceptual level this is not the case, but at least from what I understand, it is impossible to go back in time, because if you do invent a time machine, that time machine can only exist when it was created or anywhere in the future. So if you created a time machine now, then you can only travel back to now.
So another question, not a question, but just in line with the time travel, you say we can only travel forward, but so does time travel specifically mean the physical movement of the time traveler to a previous point in time, or does it mean observing time, like when, like the sun, by the time we get hit by the sun's rays, they've traveled 8 minutes through space, and the black hole photo that was taken a month ago or so records events that happened millions of years ago.
Right.
So in a corner of my mind I was thinking maybe we're actually seeing our universe being destroyed, and our experience of time is hardly what we think it is.
That could be very much the case. I mean, it could very well be possible that the entire universe is essentially collapsing or expanding so much that there's nothing left. But we won't know because it's going to take so long that it doesn't matter. No, but to get back to like time travel in the sense, what was it? Somebody described to me. I mean, time travel is such a funky idea. First of all, different cultures even perceive time differently. That's something that was definitely new to me. Where classical Western thought is time is on a line, right? A timeline.
Yeah.
It goes from one place to another, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, there are plenty of other ideas about time which call it. It's like right. You're going from. It's the fourth dimension in this case. You're going from 2D to 3D to 4D.
So, there's some community. I think it's one of the uncontacted communities, tribes. I think either somewhere in the Amazon, who don't have a concept of time. Not really don't have a concept of time. Either they don't have a concept of future. They're called Piraha. Laura was telling me about them. Like Piraha. They don't have a concept of time. Yeah. Oh yeah. She was saying they don't have a concept of time. Like they live in the now.
Right.
She said it's Piraha. I don't know if I can look it up. Piraha. It's like piranha without an N.
or it's just a clan of piranhas who just.
So yeah, well, okay, this is what Google gives me when I type it in. The Piraha are an indigenous people of the Amazon rainforest in Brazil. They're the sole surviving subgroup of the Mura people. They are hunter-gatherers. Okay. It also says that they are only about. The community currently has 800 individuals, and I can see something from YouTube over here which says from the Smithsonian Channel, a language without numbers. Oh, so they have what Laura tells me that they have an understanding of a little and a lot. So it's a trailer. I can see the Grammar of Happiness trailer, a language without numbers. So their experience of the universe is very much not even the opposite of the Western understanding of time, but it's
incredibly different.
It's incredibly different. I don't know if the right word would be incredibly simplified or incredibly complex. So complex you just can't fathom it.
Well, I mean, the thing is that, right, it depends. It's sort of like, all right, so let's take a book, for example, right? Let's say you and I both take a book which is in a language that we don't understand at all. And we were both told, without any help, translate these books so that you can explain to people what they mean, right? So there are going to be certain pieces that we will agree on. If we don't talk to each other, we just translate the book with no help, no idea of how to do any of it. But because of how we grew up in essentially a different environment, that translation is going to be wildly different from the other, right? True. I might come up with, like, I don't know, I might come up with a story about mythology, while instead you say, no, it's actually physics of this, right? It could be completely different because we just don't have any. We're starting from ground zero to try to translate this book.
In my mind, I was already imagining how I'd try and translate the book. I think the closest I'd come to is maybe just I'd have to rely on pattern recognition and maybe figuring out that whatever this word or this character means is really important because it appears multiple times.
Right. And then, but there's no, because we have no basis in what it's about, we're essentially inventing it then and there. And then in the future, if somebody looks at our translations and more people do that type of work, then they come up with either refined theories based on what we've done, or they find out that my translation was actually crap because I did something totally wrong, but I would know because I was literally inventing it in the first place. So in that sense, right, time is very much like that, or the perception of the world around you. The reason why, for example, well, let's go with Darwin's theory of evolution, right? It is still technically a theory in the sense that there's no way that you can make it 100% provable all the time.
Yeah.
But it is a theory in this. It's one of the most proven theories in the sense that it's been proven over and over again by a repetition of results over many different types of experiments, experiences, whatever. But it's still called a theory because it's not a mathematical proof. A mathematical proof is proven. It is the way it is, and nothing can change it. But evolution is so variable that it will always be a theory, despite it being fairly proved in the sense that there's no alternate theory which has as much data.
So evolution basically depends on time. Evolution cannot rely on the present, so to say.
So to say, right? It's you have to see the progression over time of evolution as opposed to looking at it here and now. But then again, right? That's because we have an understanding of this, which is in a linear sense.
Oh yeah, and speaking about how different cultures, communities, people experience time, there's also other communities or religions that experience time in a cyclical manner.
Yes, absolutely.
Where it's in different ways. The Baha'i religion believe in incarnation. You're gonna die today as a person, tomorrow you'll come back as a frog.
or a
Yes.
horse. I don't know if it depends on how you lived your life, or if there's a checklist of experiences you're supposed to have in your journey.
I know in I forget if it's Buddhism or it's not the only religion that does that. But based on your actions in this life, you will become something else afterwards. So, but yes, cyclical time is something that a lot of at least the few that I studied during my time in, I think, one class a long time ago was there are definitely Native American groups which do have this concept of cyclical time, in the sense that everything is a cycle. Everything, death, rebirth. It's a repeating cycle that never ends.
Okay, so now
Yes.
time travelers, if you get a time travel, if the concept of time travel existed in such a community, in such a society where people believe in time moving in a cyclical manner, do you think they'll have to go back in time, or do you think they'll just set traps, so to say? Like Hitler was a bad guy, but we'll get him next time.
I don't know what to say to that. No, I think think of it this way, right? Cyclical time is not necessarily like we will have like the same thing happen again in terms of how we think of it, right? Like there's not going to be another Berlin Wall in this sense, but it's very possible that something very similar to the Berlin Wall will happen sometime in the future. And in that sense, that is part of that cyclical cycle. Of course, what do I know? I don't actually think that cyclical time is a thing, but it's the repetition of things that have happened before, but not necessarily with the same people or the same context or the same resources. I mean, we joke all the time about, oh yeah, look, every country has a dictator, or we're going back to a right-wing mentality of going backwards. But I mean, if we think about it, this time period of after World War II up till now is actually, I think, what is it? People say it's the longest time that the world has been at peace, technically. But in the sense that there have been no great wars as it was in World War II, World War I, and every time previous to that.
I'll say to that, I'll answer in the German way, Jein. Yeah. Because there haven't been any great wars for the people who write history, if I can put it that way. For the people with the largest voice in the world, people who generally control popular culture, there hasn't been a great war. But I'd argue that the wars that are being fought right now in whatever Bush called the war on terror, that are being fought right now in mostly the Middle East and some parts of North Africa and East Africa, can trace their roots way back to the First World War, and even earlier, because the First World War was based on previous disagreements. So, let me see how far I can go with it. World War I happens, German loses, Germans get pissed, they get mad, they want a rematch. World War II happens, the US comes and wins, they're defending champions.
But let's also put in the caveat that the US supplied materials, but they weren't the ones, like, they were useful and they definitely helped, but they came in basically because their pride was hurt.
So then they run out. Then they run away with the trophy, quote unquote. After swooping in at the last moment. But Russia also feels like they won. So World War II is officially over. Come the Cold War. Berlin Wall being the biggest.
That was the
milestone, and the Iron Curtain. So Western powers are currently not having any active fighting, but from the Cold War, there's a billion proxy. There's a billion proxy wars. The main one that comes to mind is when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, and Americans are not going to let this slide. So they use. I watch a lot of documentaries, so I almost feel like I was there. They decide to supply arms to the rebels,
which were the Taliban,
who are the Taliban, through
or are the Taliban,
through Pakistani intelligence. So at this time, Osama is even celebrated in American newspapers as a hero.
Yeah.
A simple hero who goes and fights for his people. So right now the US and Russia are fighting. Oh, and before that they actually fought in Vietnam.
Right, of course.
Yeah. And both sides won or lost depending on who you ask.
Yeah. Let's also not forget that I think the U.S. did try to invade. What was it? North Korea?
Oh yeah. Actually, North Korea was the immediate. North Korea. My timeline is messed up. North Korea was the immediate big war after the Second World War.
Yeah, that was a disaster.
Yeah.
But okay, so all right. So you have all these different conflicts, proxy wars, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think by the time Vietnam finished, then there was, at least on the American side, there was no. Actually, no, that's a total lie. There was Operation Desert Storm, which was George W.H. Bush, was it?
George W.H. Bush.
Yeah. And then after that was George W. Bush with Iraq. It's and also let's not forget, in between that the USA also messed up what is it, Iran, pretty badly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in that sense, yes, obviously there hasn't been perfect peace. And there haven't been any really big wars because all of it is contained, at least within certain countries, and all over oil and resources, right? But sorry, go ahead.
So back to time travel, I'm still trying to solve the problem of Hitler. Every time I move forward, I have to suddenly jump back in time. The guy who shot the Archduke Ferdinand. What was his name? He was celebrated. I have to look him up. Who? I knew his name. It's a simple name. I think it starts with P. Archduke Franz and his wife. Okay, so this guy who shot Archduke Franz and his wife. Okay, his name is Gavrilo Princip.
Yes, I don't know why I remember that name now that you mention it, but yes.
I think they built a monument to him to celebrate him in. I don't want to mention the wrong country. They built a monument to celebrate him recently. But remember, have you read or heard of the story of how he almost failed to complete the assassination?
No, please tell me.
So I know by the time he got to shoot Archduke Franz, that was his second attempt. It was almost by chance, because the first time they tried, I think they tried to blow up his car, and we should keep talking so I get my story straight.
Yeah. So okay, but that's like it's like the butterfly effect, but in the opposite way, right? It's like if they hadn't succeeded, it's what is the hypothetical future that would have happened without any of that stuff? Would have everything collapsed anyway because somebody would have just tried again, or would have been something completely different? It's hard to say.
Okay, so what if hypothetically a time traveler actually already went back and tried to stop World War II by trying to stop him? I found the part of the story that I needed to make reference to. I'm reading from Wikipedia. The 6 conspirators lined on the route. They were spaced along the Appel Quay, each one with instructions to try and kill Franz Ferdinand when the royal car reached his position. The first conspirator on the route to see the royal car was Mohammed Memhasik, standing by the Austro-Hungarian bank. He lost his nerve and allowed the car to pass without taking action. Then, in later interviews, he says that there was a cop standing behind him and he was afraid of being arrested. So then, so there's several people who failed to commit the assassination at first, but one of them actually did throw a grenade, but it failed to hit the target. So eventually, the only reason why he got shot is that they decided to change route, and this Gavrilo Princip guy saw them by chance. was like, yeah,
Right.
oh yeah, we were meant to shoot the guy. So what if a time traveler actually went back in time and tried to stop them all?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, right? Because if they succeeded, right, it's very possible that they would have, depending on what happened, another group of people would have tried again.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then if they were to just try again, well, then in the end, right, then they would probably have succeeded. But at least for me, I don't know. It's not that I'm happy that certain things like that happened, but at least the way that we understand the world is the way it is now because of what happened in the past. And I at least feel a little bit of comfort knowing that there are not future people running around trying to like, right? Maybe I'll become a great or terrible person, and they're out to hunt me. I mean,
maybe,
right? And that would be terrifying. My goodness.
That's what I usually wonder, if there's people in the future who keep coming back.
People are after you?
No, not really. They're after me. But my worry, if they keep coming back and trying to fix things, whenever there's some super weird stuff happening in the world that we can't really explain, maybe there's some time traveler somewhere cringing, or they're like, you don't know what I just saved you from. Maybe in another timeline they're fighting World War 17.
Yeah. No, I think at least in the case of this time travel, right? I personally think that first of all, I think that they would, if you had the capability of going back in time, first of all, the time machines would have to exist in the first place, which means that it's possible for multiple people to try it over and over and over again, and therefore, right? I don't even think that we would know. Here's my thing. Yeah. I don't think that we would know that if somebody were to take out somebody who is actually terrible for our future, because it wouldn't affect our future. Do you see what I'm saying?
Almost. Yeah.
So it's have you watched what's good time travel stuff? So first of all, Back to the Future, terrible time travel movie in terms of application of actual time travel. But what good? No, I mean time travel is just messed up. Let me just put it that way.
When I was in high school, I read a good book on time travel, one that was actually convincing. Because it based it on some science on how light travel. The slit experiment. Have you ever heard of the slit experiment?
I have not. So
if you look up the slit experiment, where if you pass a beam of light through a slit that's small enough that the light beam will split into two.
Okay. No, I have heard of that.
Yeah, I might have explained it badly, but the double slit experiment. So yeah, and the more slits you put in front of it, if you pass light through two slits, the light will already split. Then if you put 4 slits in front, and the light that went through the first slit continues splitting, it's going to split into what's 4 times 2? 8. You're gonna have 8 beams. So if you continue, if you just keep making more and more and more slits, you're going to have an infinite number of light rays. So in this novel, they're arguing that they figured out how to travel through time, and based on the argument that that's how time works. Because remember, in physics, the constant they have is the speed of light.
Right.
Though it gets to break sometimes, and when you do enough calculations, even that constant stops making sense. But anyway, yeah. So the idea is there's multiple existences we are living, like or probability. I don't know why I went through such a long tangent. Probability, where flip a coin, it's going to be head or tails. Flip it again, it's going to be heads or tails. Flip it again, but for every possibility, for every new possibility, there's 2 possibilities. So it continues exponentially. So traveling through time is not really just jumping along this timeline, but trying to jump from one possibility to another possibility. Am I making sense?
If you put it that way, though, then you're not necessarily traveling. At least in my idea of it, you're not traveling time. You're traveling realities, which is it could be the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's very different, right? I can't believe I'm referencing this, but
Yeah.
The Flash does all sorts of time travel stuff, the TV show.
Uh-huh.
And they do cover things like this, where basically, right, what happens if this timeline happens to this? What happens if you adjust this? And they've probably gone through, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 different realities in the show, and they still manage to make it make sense.
Okay.
But
yeah.
But in that same way, right?
Mhm.
Their time travel is their time travel is the catalyst, or it's the method in which they tell the story in such a way where you understand what you can in their idea, right?
Mhm.
If you were to travel back in time
Yeah.
and kill Hitler,
Mhm.
right? Then yes, that reality exists, but that means that you yourself no longer can exist because that reality doesn't support your existence. You see what I'm saying?
Partially. I know. I think that you wouldn't exist in the reality you left,
Right.
but there's going to be the possibility of being a W in this other reality, depending on how Hitler's death
Affects your parents' meeting or
Yeah.
your grandparents' meeting. Yeah.
True. Then that goes back to the paradox of if you didn't exist, then who came back? No, but you came back from another reality. So maybe you did succeed.
Yeah. It's rough stuff. Rough stuff.
Oh, and when I first thought about killing Hitler, I actually looked it up.
You make it sound so casual.
Because there's always the question of could you go back in time and kill baby Hitler?
Right.
And there's the story of him drowning and a priest saving him.
Uh-huh.
What if that priest was a time traveler who went back in time and threw him into whatever he was drowning in?
Right. See,
and he got cold feet. He was like, no, there's no way he's killing a baby.
I mean, honestly, there's no way to know, but it's one of those things where if it was the case, right? We're in that reality where that priest saved him. There could be an entire another reality where you and I are talking about, so what if Hitler were to live, right? Or just like, right, it's the other way around. I mean, we could frankly even be talking about another completely different person in a different region of the world, right? Like imagine instead, right? Instead of Hitler, we were actually talking about I don't know. Who's a totalitarian fascist dictator who we wouldn't expect to be on the world stage in that time?
I know Stalin manages to stay out of history books when people, not history books, he manages to hide himself from the global conscience on extreme evil, yet he killed more people than Hitler.
Well, the thing is that, right, Hitler at the time of his rise to power was not a good person, but he didn't push, so his ideology pushed for the terrible things that happened. But those things hadn't happened yet, right? So it could be very possible that it could have been possible it was France instead that did all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, it's hard to know because it didn't happen, but there could have been a rising, right? You could say this story, right? There was a rising. There was a military officer who became a rising power in politics, who became very populist and decided to push for basically heavy government control with the support of the people, so that there was essentially it changed the system they had from a democracy to a fascist leadership, which was very oriented towards war and conflict and against others. Now, if you're listening to me and you're thinking, "Oh wow, that sounds like a few countries that I know of," right? It's because it's happening to plenty. I mean, I'm not excluding the U.S. from this whatsoever. if you didn't notice, but the thing is that it depends on how people react to that that essentially makes the difference. So in the case of Germany, at least a majority were totally for it. And then plenty of people, I'm sure, regretted what was happening once they realized what was happening.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you see that your country is doing well and prospering well under leadership, because you don't see all the negative, then you're totally for it, and it's understandable for you to be happy that you and your family are doing.
Well,
but it comes at a pretty big cost.
Oh yeah. So sorry, I was distracted by Samson. He's really energetic right now. So I was thinking, what if, like, sorry? The sound just became really choppy.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
So you're aware that I play a lot of games.
Yeah.
Now what's interesting for me is that there are plenty of games which run in like an open world setting, in the sense that you can explore and do all sorts of things. Now there are some of these games that try at least to deal with I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, just continue.
No, I actually don't know where I'm going with this. I mean, basically what I was going to say is that they deal with the passing of time in different ways. So for example, there are some games which if you ride your horse from one town to another, and you can do that the entire way, or the game has it so that you can skip that part to quick travel to point once you've reached that destination once. I don't know. It's just a stupid talking point. I don't know why it came up.
So I couldn't find the cartoon that I'm referencing, but basically it raised the issue of killing Hitler. Again, when I looked up this topic, for some reason, most of the stuff that was coming up was reasons why you should not kill Hitler. So there was this cartoon. Let me share it with you. It shows how there's a dead spider somewhere here. I hope can you see? Okay, I just shared with you.
I'm clicking on it.
Yeah. It shows how easy it is to move from something that's relatively noble, as much as it's murderous, to the extreme point of murdering people for leaving dirty dishes.
Yeah.
Because
I'm reading it. Yeah. Go ahead.
Basically, who decides what exactly is bad, or how bad a badometer, if I could use that word?
Yeah.
What scale do you use to determine how evil someone is for them to deserve a time-traveling contract killer to come after them?
Okay, yeah, that's cute. No, it's a good point. I mean, because I'm of the opinion that killing people is not the answer. It's changing minds.
Yeah.
Right? Because the reason why Hitler was bad was because he influenced the mind. He through his political work, he influenced the mind of the people around him to do the things that he wanted, which were bad. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, so yeah, you're talking about killing him not being the solution, or killing bad people in the past not being the solution, but trying to impede the spread of their ideas, of their evil ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, right? The reason why these things happen is because people don't understand. At least that's what that is my firm belief. And it's not because they have a lack of ability to understand, right? It's not. I wouldn't at all call any of these people necessarily not smart. I would think it has to do with the exposure and the connection that you have with other people, and the not having the knowledge of other things. Right? I mean, a dog is not like just a plain old average dog is not fit to make decisions about my health care.
True.
You see what I mean?
I see what you mean.
If the dog had the capacity to learn about what things will help me for my health care, then I'm okay with the dog making decisions about my health care. Now, let's use a human now.
Yeah.
My brothers
Uh-huh.
are very smart, and I really like them.
Mm-hmm.
Would I let them would I let them make decisions about my life that they wouldn't have any aspect to know about? No, I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But if I taught them about those things, I would feel comfortable too. So if for example, I left them my computer and I said, can you do this with my computer? And I taught them how to do it, I would feel comfortable doing it. As you can see, I'm going up in levels here.
Yeah.
So I do not think that anybody is dumb in the sense that I do think people have the capacity to do anything. It just very much depends on their context and what they know and their willingness to learn.
So I'm stuck on the point of their minds, of influencing their minds, not getting rid of them.
Yeah.
But influencing their minds, if not them, the people they can influence. So
try to get me on board here. I sort of understood what you were trying.
No, what you're saying was, if I understood you correctly, you, as opposed to completely writing off people,
yes,
you start by giving them the chance to, or the opportunity to see the error of their ways, see the error or the potential implication of their actions or the path they're taking.
I'll say yes and no. So if I know, right, there's a certain degree at which I believe that people become unreasonable because they don't want to change the foundation on what they think. To such a degree where it would be hard for them to learn, but they still have the capacity. What I'm advocating for is the idea that even if somebody has a radically different viewpoint than you, don't automatically dismiss them for what they think. Think about why they think that way, and then see if you can explain why you think your way.
Yeah.
A perfect example of this is which is a huge deal in the United States, is abortion. So abortion for some is something that should not be allowed ever. It's illegal and it's murder.
Yeah.
That's the opinion of plenty of people. The other viewpoint is not about the murder or human like the human life aspect of it. It's the health and mental health of the person who is bearing the child, in addition to the capacity and willingness to actually bear the child in the first place. Two entirely different subjects, both entirely valid, but is heavily dependent on the understanding of whose life or whose mental health is at risk. Which, right, both points are entirely valid in certain ways, but then it becomes the point of who determines what is actually legal, in the sense that what do we allow in our society.
Yeah, that's tricky, because both perspectives, you could say they are truths of the people of both sides. On one side, there's this group that decides life starts when essentially what the other side calls a clump of cells.
Yeah.
To the anti-abortionist, that's already life beginning. And that's as much a life as the life of a 10, 15, 20, 25-year-old person.
Yeah.
And moving someone from not really moving, trying to influence them it's like turning the world upside down, I think.
Right. And and it's incredibly difficult. I would not argue otherwise. But that's where it becomes very difficult. So if we go back to the killing of Hitler, or the changing of minds in a dictatorship or a fascist environment, which is not healthy or positive for others, the way that kind of stuff changes is if you yourself.
Sorry, I lost the last 10 seconds.
I said essentially the way that you change minds is you have to see the effects of something for yourself to actually understand it.
Yeah, that can work to a degree, but what of cases where you interact with pure unadulterated evil, like deliberate evil, whereby there's just no other way.
Yeah. No, it's
like unstoppable force type of evil.
Yeah, and in that case, right? Then you just have to essentially unite with the people that support you and just go ahead and try to take care of it as you can. I don't know, stuff.
So do you think there's a possibility that a time traveler went back in time and united the Allies?
I'm still gonna say no. I'm still gonna say no. I don't think. I think we're not smart enough to do time travel backwards. That's what I think.
I'm thinking right now in time travel headquarters, there's alarm bells ringing all over the place. Then some suspicious character gets a call on a red telephone, old school phone.
I mean,
then he picks it up and the voice says, "They know."
Well, you know what's funny though? If we talk about reality, it could be very possible that within our timeline there are millions who have gone back in time to try to change it, and they have successfully. But we don't live in that timeline.
True.
So you see what I mean, right? It's like they've all tried, but we will never exist in that timeline ever.
So essentially, time traveling based on the possibility of multiple realities is an exercise in futility.
Well, yeah, because we're not going to see the results of it. The time travelers who do try, they're going to see the results, and they might be happy, but we're not going to see any of it.
So it's quite selfish, I'd say, because that's one person in the world population is now about. So time traveling is essentially a selfish adventure.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't even think about it that way, but I think you're absolutely right. Because and let's specify, okay? Time traveling backwards is a selfish adventure, right? Because time we're all traveling forward, and if somebody were to really jump forward, it doesn't change anything in your past to fix things.
Wait, hold up.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap it up with that. I think.
Cool.
So thanks a lot for
another episode.
Thanks for engaging with me as I moved backward and forward in time and
literally through different conversation books.
Yeah, and Hitler is still alive.
But no, he's not alive. He just didn't die as a baby.
Okay, Hitler, he's not alive now, but the Hitler we wanted to. I was thinking of getting rid of is still alive. He's probably writing Mein Kampf in prison while eating potatoes and cabbage.
I'm so happy he never had to.
Yeah. But he had a book. He was literate.
Yeah.
Literate enough to write a book that would convince people. Yeah. So, and I'm sorry about Samson was extremely active today. The other times when we recorded, he has been sleeping.
No worries about it.
Yeah. So, happy Mother's Day.
Oh, yes, happy Mother's Day to you and Laura and other family members.
So, right now I'm gonna